How's it going, fam? Welcome back to Erica's EDC, and today we're talking about CPM S35VN blade steel. Is it still relevant? Is it still a good steel? We're gonna get into that today, guys, and we're gonna go over the timeline of S35VN. I have some examples here, but to start, we actually have to go back in time, in the time warp machine, to S30V. So, a lot of people don't know this, but many knives are made in steel that were not actually made for knives. There's a very small percentage of steel that was formulated and designed for literal knives. A lot of it comes from other industries, automotive. We use a lot of spring steel, a lot of tool steel, working die steel. There's not too many actual knife steels, but one of them is S30V. And this is a CPM product, as is S45VN, which we're going to touch on in a moment, and S35. They were all made by Crucible. They are all powder metallurgy steels. And S30V was one of the knife steels that was created. However, a lot of companies used it and people ended up complaining about it being a little chippy, okay? So, fast forward, the introduction to S35VN comes around. And we saw that in the market for quite some time. Companies like Chris Reeve used it for a while. However, it was generally run 59 to 60 HRC, and people found it to be a little bit glassy and to not hold an edge very well, which is kind of interesting because S35VN was supposed to be an upgrade to S30V. Basically what they did was they reduced the vanadium content. They added, I believe it's 0.5% niobium, made a couple of other changes, and essentially what we got was S35VN that had great machinability, still good toughness, good edge retention, great corrosion resistance, truly kind of a middle of the road, all around great steel. And one of the best parts about this was its ease of sharpening and, like I said, machinability. Very easy to grind, very easy to work with. But it can be brought up to 64 HRC reasonably, and unfortunately we saw it at around 59 to 60, and I think it painted S35VN in a poor light because we were receiving knives that were at a little bit of a lower hardness level, but also a little bit thick. And none of that lended to show the true characteristics of this steel. So we had S35VN around for some time, but then of course we got the new iteration of it, which ended up being CPM S45VN, and then more recently MagnaCut that came after this. S45 is also another great steel, great corrosion resistance, super easy to sharpen, good edge retention, all the good stuff. But is S35VN now by the wayside? Is it irrelevant? I don't think so. So, in the past, I have definitely said that I didn't quite understand why S35VN was still relevant in terms of performance, because this is what I was used to. I was used to essentially kind of thicker, softer S35 where you had to lay the edge back to 15 degrees per side to get it to hold a feasible edge for a significant period of time, and even then it tended to glass out, at least on me with my use, okay? So I kind of forgot about it for a little while. However, I'm a huge advocate for revisiting things that I maybe didn't enjoy in the past. And here are two beautiful examples of S35VN opening my eyes and changing my mind. So, we have the Duckhead Forge stalker here. This is an S35VN at 63 HRC. And then we also have a new knife that just came in, and this is clearly in S35VN as well. 60 to 61 HRC, done by Peters, I believe. But this is the JG Craftshop prototype 8-inch belt knife. This is only 13 thou BTE, very thin and slicey, a little bit of a higher hardness. And these two knives have started to kind of change my mind on S35. Because like I said, the cool thing about S30V, S35VN, S45VN, they're actual knife steels. MagnaCut, another one. You get certain characteristics out of a steel that was specifically created to cut. You can get characteristics out of those that sometimes other steels can't give you because they weren't made to be a cutting tool, right? As cool as they can be, they have some severe compromises on occasion, okay? So, these examples of S35VN have really changed my mind because we have a higher hardness, especially on this one, way thinner geometry, thinner BTE, thinner grind, thinner everything compared to what you're gonna get from most production companies. So this one I haven't really put a lot of testing into at all because it literally just arrived. But I have been using this for quite some time, and these knives are very cool. So this steel I am finding now truly holds a way different type of edge. This one here arrived very toothy, and it still just has a really impressive amount of bite. I haven't found that the corrosion resistance has been compromised whatsoever with this higher hardness at all. And I haven't sharpened this one yet, but I am going to film the sharpening when I do it because I'm very curious to see how the sharpening goes. But I would love to see more custom makers maybe going back in time to S35VN and just doing thinner geometry, higher hardness, because it was made for knives. And I think it has a ton of potential, especially, like I said, S30V, we really had some chipping issues with some of the S30V, and reducing that vanadium, as much as I love those super hard vanadium carbides, reducing that a little bit and making a steel that is more user-friendly, I think that's just so cool. And I would love to see this steel being more thoroughly investigated, I guess I should say, because it's made for knives. Now, I really do think you have to run it a little bit thinner, because it just simply, it glasses out if it's too thick, or if the degrees per side is too steep, the edge gets glassy. And what I mean by that, if you haven't watched the channel before, some knives, you'll cut with them for a short period of time, and the edge will cut through certain materials like food, but then you go to cut paracord or rope or zip ties, and that edge doesn't have that bite to actually grab that material and push through. So I've just always called that glassing out, because it feels like a nice silky glassy edge, and it doesn't have that aggressive front end sharpness. So I really do think it's important that if you're going to revisit S35VN, try to run a little bit thinner, maybe a low edge angle. I've had good luck with 15 degrees per side. Nice and thin behind the edge. Try to get some thin blade stock, you know. But I really would love to see makers like Jake here revisiting this steel and you know, maybe showing some characteristics about it that we just didn't really see from production companies. And this is no shade against Chris Reeve. You guys know I love Chris Reeve knives. But you also know I have made extensive content on the necessity to lay the edges back to 15 DPS on all of the knives made before MagnaCut. So we're talking the S45VN, the S35VN, okay? I just really feel that these only performed at the best of their ability when you laid that edge back, because you just simply had a thicker blade stock. And even though they're hollow ground, or the Sabenzas are hollow ground, I should say, as much as that does help, it just simply wasn't enough when you were running 59 to 60 HRC for this particular steel. So it's nothing against these tried and true knives here. I just really have found that these needed to be modified, essentially, to get a decent performance out of them. Whereas with this stuff, when you're just simply running it harder and thinner, you're not really compromising the toughness or anything. You're not compromising corrosion resistance, but you are gaining the edge holding. You are gaining that edge retention. And S35VN is truly kind of a jack of all trades, master of none type steel. It really actually is. It's kind of right in the middle of the road in terms of being good at everything for a knife. So I'm very excited to test and review this 8-inch prototype. I think it has a great blade shape. It's nice and thin and slicey. Jake did an awesome job on this knife. Very, very comfortable. And I'm super stoked to have a second S35VN knife to really test and sharpen and put through the paces like this stalker, because this one has blown my mind. And we also have a pretty significant difference in hardness here. 60 to 61 versus 63 is a massive difference on the Rockwell scale, as it is not linear. So I just wanted to go over that with you guys, in case we start to see some knives being released in S35VN again. There's such a hype around the new and improved steels, but it can be equally as exciting to go back to kind of some of the old school stuff and just do it better, you know? Not saying there's such thing as a magical heat treat, that's not real life, but I am saying you can run higher hardness, thinner geometry and see what happens. And this is a prime example right here. Dusty did an awesome job on this, and this is just holding an edge completely different than this ever did, even with my modified 15 degrees per side. This is just simply better. So, if you were wondering if CPM S35VN is still relevant, I would say absolutely. But I would definitely recommend checking out some custom makers that are utilizing this steel and see if you enjoy it at a higher hardness and a thinner geometry. Hopefully we can kind of see the same thing with S45VN here, although I will say Spyderco has done a phenomenal job on all of the steels. They tend to just run higher hardness, thinner geometry in the first place anyway. So Spyderco does an awesome job, but you're really going to obtain an immense difference from custom knives just because the setting is simply more capable of obtaining that higher hardness and that thinner geometry and a little bit of that special twist that custom makers put on their work. I hope that you guys enjoyed that. Check out S35VN if you haven't before, if you're looking for something with good toughness, good edge retention, good corrosion resistance. I'll keep you guys updated on the testing of this one. Check out JG Craftshop on Instagram. He just started making knives 1 year ago, and this is what his work is looking like after just a year of making. Look at that. Let's go give him some love. Absolutely beautiful custom work from a very young, very new to the scene maker. Check out that plunge grind. That is dang near perfection, especially for a new maker. That is extremely difficult to do. Check out Jake Gardner, JG Craftshop. This is just beautiful work, and I cannot wait to see how he grows in the community. And also check out Dusty from Duckhead Forge, another incredible maker, doing phenomenal work. I'll see you guys on the next video. Go use your shit. learn how to sharpen your knives. I'll see you guys so soon. I love you so much, fam. Take care.